Hare Krishna. Good morning to everyone. So, for those who just came for the class and were not here for the morning announcement, it's very unfortunate that His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj fell little ill, and so he could not really come for the class, and so devotees requested myself to fill in. Of course, I'm very poor replacement for Maharaj, but yesterday we read one verse with devotees. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, which is the final verse of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which says that devotional service or bhakti gives you all the results of all yagyas, of all charitable activities, of all austerities. Very famous verse, Yagesha Danesu Tapashu Chaiva. And so it's very interesting that Srila Prabhupada explains what devotional service is, and that is hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in the association of devotees. And so, why Krishna consciousness is so powerful and so perfect? Because despite of the lack of our individual Krishna consciousness, and I'm sure that many devotees would, I definitely feel like that, and I'm sure that many of you would share the same feeling that, yes, you feel that you lack in devotional qualification. Anyone feels like that? So what's our hope? Our hope is association of devotees. Because even though our individual Krishna consciousness is very tiny and insignificant as it is, but when we come together, then we have the benefit of combined effect of our Krishna consciousness. So, and without properly established sadhu sangha, there is no way of advancing in Krishna consciousness. And so why I am saying that, because despite of my personal ability to glorify such a scripture as Caitanya Bhagavata is, practically speaking, equal to zero, but because we have so many exalted Vaishnavas here, even though, I'm sure that many of you do not feel like that, but we can do it together. And so what I want to do today is to invite you to share the glorifications, to add in to the glorification of Caitanya Bhagavatam. I'll just make a little introduction, and then I want to ask you to also share what's your inspiration in regards to Caitanya Bhagavata. Let's see how many of you have either read Caitanya Bhagavata. Probably not that many devotees read full Caitanya Bhagavata, but probably we do have such devotees here. Anyone read Caitanya Bhagavata in full? Yeah, so we have Srinivas Prabhu. That's very rare, studious Vaishnava. But I'm sure many of you read at least parts of Caitanya Bhagavata, and even more heard Caitanya Bhagavata, at least some parts of Caitanya Bhagavata. How many of you read or heard at least partially some of the Caitanya Bhagavata? Great. So we can share our inspiration about that amazing scripture. So let's start with offering our respects to the spiritual masters, Vaishnavas, and the Supreme Lord. Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalokaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Pachitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, with your kind blessings and permission, I wanted to start with reflecting on what Maharaj described yesterday, which was really wonderful. So, not everything, but at least the main parts, and the main part, of course, is that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is not just a saintly personality or even one of the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, but he is the original Supreme Lord himself, Avatari, who is non-different from Krishna, and he appeared in a mood of a devotee, just to show us the example how to serve Krishna. And so both Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Caitanya Bhagavata, which was known as Caitanya Mangala before, describe his amazing activities of the same Krishna, who appears only once in the day of Brahma, once in 1,000 Mahayugas. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also appears at that rare, even though he, as Yoga Avatar, he comes every Kali Yuga, but in this Kali Yuga he came as the Supreme Lord himself, not as Avatar. And of course, before we appreciate Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, it is very important to appreciate the author, in the same way as we cannot really appreciate Krishna through reading about Krishna in Prabhupada's books without appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. So in the same way, it is very important to appreciate Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. And yesterday Maharaj read a few verses glorifying Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. And these glorifications, they come from the author of Caitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So we'll read texts 40 and 41. The last ones Maharaj read, so we'll reflect on those. Vrindavana dasapade koti namaskar, aiche grantha kariteno tarilo samsar. I offer millions of obeisances unto the lotus feet of Vrindavan Das Thakur. No one else could write such a wonderful book for the deliverance of all fallen souls. And text 41. Narayani Chaitanyera Uchishta Bhajan Tanra Garbhe Janmila Sri Das Vrindavan. Narayani eternally eats the remnants of the food of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur was born of her womb. And so I also wanted to read Srila Prabhupada's purport to this particular verse, which is extremely interesting, and it brings up probably the most important topic in Krishna consciousness into the light I would really like to focus on today. In text 43 of the Gaurganadash Tipika, a book written by Kavi Karnapur that describes all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and who they previously were, there is the following statement regarding Narayani. Ambikaya svasayasin namna sila kilimbika Krishna chistam prabhunjana sayam Narayani matam. When Lord Krishna was a child, he was nursed by a woman named Ambika, who had a younger sister named Kilimbika. During the time of Lord Chaitanya's incarnation, the same Kilimbika used to eat the remnants of food left by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Kilimbika was Narayani, who was a niece of Srivas Thakur's. Later on, when she grew up and married, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur was born from her womb. A devotee of Lord Krishna is celebrated in terms of devotional service rendered to the Lord. Thus we know Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur as the son of Narayani. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur notes in this connection that there is no reference to her parental ancestry because there is no need to understand it. So this is something Maharaj also mentioned yesterday about the position of Narayani being the Gopi Kilimbika who was nursing Lord Krishna. So when Krishna comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he returns the favor. Now he is nursing Narayani. She was feeding him in his previous life, now he is feeding her. And so this is one feature, that Narayani is an eternal associate of the Supreme Lord. And then it says that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited so much affection towards Narayani that he would give her the whole plate just for her to relish alone of his Mahaprasadam. And then it's also mentioned in Caitanya Bhagavata when Lord Chaitanya was with Narayani in the house of Srivas Thakur. As it is mentioned, Narayani is a niece of Srivas Thakur in Chaitanya Lila, and he would tell her, Narayani, I want you to show your love towards Krishna by how you chant the holy name. And so Narayani started chanting the names of Krishna with tears in her eyes, and she fell unconscious which was the symptom of divine love. And so this was the parentage of the author of Caitanya Charitamrita, and also a couple of other things mentioned in regards to Narayani. As the pastime goes, she became a widow when she was very young, and she took shelter in the house of none other than Vasudev Datta, whom Srila Prabhupada defined as a saintly personality much greater in status than Lord Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ just agreed to suffer. He wanted to suffer for the sins of his followers, but Vasudev Datta, he wanted to suffer for the sins of every living entity in the entire universe. And this is how great his compassion was, and of course Lord Caitanya said you don't need to suffer because such a great Vaishnava wants all living entities in the universe to be liberated, then they are liberated already. And so it says that 500 years ago, just by the desire of Vasudev Datta, every single living entity in this particular universe went back home, back to Godhead. Haribo! And so, then why we're still here? Let's explain that we're new souls, just arrived, maybe from other universes or whatever the case might be, because this is not the only universe. And so there are plenty of conditioned souls. There's never ever any vacancy. But Vasudev's Datta compassion was so great that he was a leper, as was explained, and he, his body was rotting alive, and the worms were eating up his flesh. And when a worm would fall off the wound, the Vasudev Datta would pick the worm up and place him back on the wound. Because he was thinking, Ishavasya madam sarvam, yat kinchat jagatyam jagad, that the Lord is giving everyone some share of food. So the Lord gave this worm my flesh as his food. So if I do not place this worm back, it's going to be injustice to the worm. Let him eat my flesh. So it's something unimaginable. But this type of Vaishnava Vasudev Datta was. His compassion and his detachment, obviously, detachment is just one tiny little feature of someone's greatness in devotional service. So his compassion was so great, he was ready to share his own body, even with insignificant worms. So, and when Lord Caitanya cured him by embracing him, and he became immediately cured of his leprosy, then what was the complaint of Vasudev Datta? He should not be having any complaints, he was cured. But he had a complaint. He said, "My dear Lord, of course, I'm very grateful to you, but I'm afraid that now, not only his body became cured, but because it was touched by the Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself, embraced by the Lord, his body became very beautiful." And he said, "I'm afraid that, when I was so sick, it was easy for me to feel humble. But now, I'm completely healthy and I'm so attractive, I'm afraid that I'll become proud." So anyway, it gives us few glimpses into the character of Vasudev Datta. how amazing were associates of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, when the Supreme Lord comes, his immediate surrounding descends along with him, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jibedoya Kore Swaparsada Svedham Saha Abatori. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of his compassion for the fallen souls, descends into this world along with Swaparsad, his own associates. Sahabatori. Abatori means avatari, descends. Right? This is Bengali pronunciation. And so, we can understand that this was the place where Vrindavan Das Thakur was born, in the house of Vasudev Datta himself. His wife was Narayani. And so, understanding this feature, we can also relate to why Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says in Caitanya Bhagavat, he says, Murka Loka, oh fools, just hear Caitanya Bhagavata. Because there is no one greater than Vrindavan Das Thakur. So, even though Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami was such a greatly amazing Vaishnava himself, who received the mercy of the Supreme Lord and all the associates of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and was requested to narrate Chaitanya Leela, but he compares himself to someone like Vrindavan Das Thakur, and naturally, in that comparison, he feels himself completely inferior. Because he didn't have that fortune to be to be related to Srivas Thakur and be brought up in a house of Vasudev Datta and have his association from the very birth. Naturally, he feels himself in comparison very inferior. But it is very interesting to note that it is Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is glorified, and this spread all over the world, and the whole world is reading Chaitanya Charitamrita now. It's translated into so many languages by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And it's also interesting to note another parallel, that Srila Prabhupada, he was always, when he was saying so many wonderful things about his Guru Maharaj, and when his disciples were asking, can you describe more about your spiritual master? Srila Prabhupada would just say, what can I say? He was the man from Vaikuntha. He was someone directly descending from the spiritual world. And if we look at the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, someone who was born from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, district magistrate from material point of view, and great Vaishnava Acharya who did so much preaching in his lifetime. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati became a ray of Vishnu. He came as an answer to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayer to Lord Chaitanya to please send him someone from his own, one of his associates, to take over the mission. And so we know the glories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that being born in the house of such a great Vaishnava and dedicating his whole life from the start, from childhood, he was never interested in anything except establishing Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mission very firmly, and he was so successful. He had 50 or 60,000 disciples. Anyone remembers the figure? Anyway, either 50 or 60,000 disciples. And of course, Srila Prabhupada, comparing himself to his Guru Maharaj, that he joined the mission later in life and he had to spend so many years in a household life, etc. And, even though he was born in a house of a Vaishnava, his father was also a Vaishnava, but his father was, comparing to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, didn't had such a glorious history. He was a humble Vaishnava who was just, fulfilling his duties to his family and, focusing on his personal worship. And so, naturally, Srila Prabhupada, when he was comparing himself to his Guru Maharaj, he was feeling inferior. And even when he was comparing himself to many of his god brothers, he was feeling inferior. Right? Because many of his god brothers had an amazing lineage, mind-blowing lineages, some of the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And yet, it was Srila Prabhupada who was chosen as Senapati Bhakta, as it was predicted. In Caitanya Bhagavat, actually, this is one of the glories of Caitanya Bhagavat, where Lord Chaitanya says, Mora Senapati Bhakta, that my Commander-in-Chief will spread my glories all over the world. Priti Vichayate Nagaradigram Sarvatra Prachara Hoibamor Nam. In every town and village, my name will be glorified. And so, this is so, it brings very, very interesting point. Why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the end of the purport, says that there is no reference to his parental ancestry because there is no need to understand it. Because the glories of one's lineage does not necessarily makes one qualified. This was one of the main points. That it doesn't matter in which family we were born. It doesn't matter what kind of qualifications our family had and all. What matters is how much we are surrendered to Krishna. And what is the first and foremost quality? And that is humility. That's why Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was stressing the third verse of Shikshashtaka so much. Trinadapi, Snichnatarorapi, Sahishnana, Amanina Manadana, Kirtanya Sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready all respects unto others without expecting any respect in return. And so, we can see that this is such an important lesson. Actually, it's the lesson of Caitanya Bhagavat as well. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Sitaram Lakshmana Man Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. And that is the lesson of humility. Starting with Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Even though he is the Supreme Lord. But he exhibited so much humility in his character. There are so many examples of that. And we can see that he is surrounded by his associates who are also amazingly humble. And this is why I was suggesting that perhaps this is the most important topic in Krishna consciousness. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was always stressing the chanting of the holy names as the most important theme. But Kirtanya Sadahari, in order to actually always chant the holy name, humility is the important prerequisite. Otherwise, we chant the holy name today, but there is no any guarantee that we'll continue doing that tomorrow. And humility is the only warranty that it will be happening. And so, this is one aspect of Caitanya Bhagavata. And just at the end, well, before we get into discussions and reflections and sharing, I wanted to read one of the opening verses of Sri Caitanya Bhagavat, which glorifies Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because the whole Sri Caitanya Bhagavata is dedicated to that. So this is this is one of the first verses of Sri Caitanya Bhagavat. Actually, the very first verse of Sri Caitanya Bhagavat, the opening verse. If someone knows this verse, you can chant together with me. Ajano lambita bhujau kanakaya dato samkirtanai kapitaro Kamalaya Laksham Vishwambaro Dvijakaro Yogadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karuna Vataram. I worship their lordships, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, whose long arms extend down to their knees, whose beautiful complexions are radiant yellow like molten gold, and whose elongated eyes are like red lotuses. They are the topmost brahmanas, the guardians of religious principles for this age, the most munificent benefactors of all living entities, and the most compassionate incarnations of Godhead. They initiated the congregational chanting of the names of Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna. So as we know, Sri Caitanya Bhagavat is consisting of 3 parts in the same way as Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are called Kandas, Adi Kanda, Madhya Kanda, and Shesha Kanda. Shesha means and also. Like in Bengali, if someone says Shesh, that means finished. So finishing pastimes are called Shesha Kanda. So, and there are many wonderful pastimes described in there. Of course, the Adikanda describes the childhood and pastimes at youth, and Madhyakanda describes the Lord's taking sannyas and his preaching activities, and Sheshakanda, very similar to Antilila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, describes his final pastimes in Jagannath Puri. And of course, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they mutually supporting each other. Whatever was not elaborately described in Chaitanya Bhagavat is actually filled up with Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was very careful not to unnecessarily repeat the same pastimes, but to add new ones which were not elaborated upon. Alright, Hare Krishna. So we still have time. Actually, we have quite a bit of time, right? So if any of you want to share your inspiration in regards to the glories of Caitanya Bhagavat, please do so. Do we have another mic for the? Okay. Unfortunate. Anyway, I'll have to repeat then, I suppose, the summary of whatever you are saying. So it should be my practicing, attentively listening. So please, anyone wants to share?